What's going on, everybody? And as always, I hope you're having a solid day and a great weekend. So today we're going to do a little bit of work with one of the upgrades that is the most popular for the Toyota Tundra, the TRD rear sway bar. About a month ago, I got my sway bar from Sparks Parts and we did an unboxing, we did an install, but now I'm going to go under the truck and ensure everything is still bueno and good to go. All the bolts are tight, everything's on there correctly. Basically just a quick checkup. This is something I do with every single thing I put on the Tundra, no matter what it is. I always go back and ensure tightness. In the beginning, I put it on, then about maybe 3 days later, I'll check again, and then I'll extend it out a little bit. So here we are at 1 month. We're gonna make sure nothing shook itself loose, no rattling, nothing crazy. One thing you should know is when you put on the TRD rear sway bar, if you're not used to it, when you're pulling into a parking lot or a driveway or anywhere where the driveway is a little bit elevated over the road and you got to kind of come up that hump to get in the driveway, in the rear you may hear the sway bar move a little bit. Now the way the sway bar is designed, it's meant to move with the rear axle a tad. All right, so you're going to hear it move. A lot of people mistake that for leaf spring clunk. All right, so just know you're going to get a little bit of sound out of it. Nothing crazy. Just if you have your window down and you're backing up, you may hear a little bit of sound here and there. But just ensure that your TRD rear sway bar is tight and good to go. Like I said, that's what we're going to do today. If you are interested in the part, just head on over to sparksparts.com. The part runs between, I think, $200, $225. It's fantastic. Don't forget to use the promo code TundraDude34, and that saves you 5% today and every day on that part and the rest of the website. Now, what the TRD rear sway bar does for you, it helps with the body roll of the Tundra. The Tundra is synonymous with a lot of body roll. That helps a lot with it. It helps with cornering. It just helps with overall feel of the truck. It's definitely a great part for a cheaper price. It's not hard to install. Probably about a half hour to 45 minutes, depending on how easy it is to get the bed bolts out. There's bolts in the side that you'll see me start on to put the end links in just over the rear tire. Sometimes they're a little bit of a pain to get out. You need a big breaker bar. I use an air gun, so you need something with a little bit of torque behind it. But it's definitely great. This is my third, I believe it's my third TRD rear sway bar, and it really does a lot for the truck, especially a heavy truck like this Crew Max with the sunroof on top and whatnot. So definitely helps with the handling. Totally worth it. I highly recommend. So feel free to contact Sparks Parts. I want to do a lot of parts videos now before Christmas. So if you're in the market for anything, or you have somebody in your life that is a Toyota person and you're trying to buy stuff for them, this is my wish list. And right on the top of the wish list is the TRD rear sway bar. So once again, we're about to go under the truck and we're going to make sure everything is still connected right and everything is good to go with the TRD rear sway bar.
Now I gotta tell you, in no way, shape, or form am I sponsored by Stanley, but I bought this about 6 months ago. This is the greatest thing I've ever had when it comes to doing installs for cars or trucks. I mean, nothing crazy but the basics. Mechanics tool set, there was about, I feel like it was like $100 at Lowe's. But this thing has everything you would need, and the best part for me is I always had my tools all over the place, and this is all my tools in one area. Look at this thing. You get pretty much everything you need. Standard and metric. Everything you need. You even get Allen wrenches, which I used the other day. It is just really, really, really awesome. So I know they're having deals all over the place with Lowe's and Home Depot and wherever you can get this kind of stuff. So again, if you have a do-it-yourselfer in your house, this may be something really good to buy for them. Highly recommend this too. All right, I don't have my tripod with me, so for these ones on the side, I'm coming at you after the fact. So these are the bolts that I said that are a little bit of a pain to take out when you're installing this. Had to use an air wrench. Some people take the tire off and use a breaker bar, but these are the pain. This is the only pain of the whole project every time I've done it. But yeah, these were tight. Nothing's coming out of here. Good to go on both sides. All right, I perched you up on the Stanley box here, so this will be a lot easier. So this is the part that's meant to move a little bit, this end link going up. So what it does is when the axle moves up and down, this will shift a tad, and that's what it's built to do. It's built to move with the axle a bit. So this is where a lot of the sound that everyone thinks is the clunk coming from the leaf springs. So just make sure, if you feel like you're having a leaf spring clunk and you have this, take it right into your service center, let them look at it. They'll confirm it, or you'll have a leaf spring issue, and then they could take care of that too. Just don't want to see you waste all your money for nothing. But you will get a little bit of noise, nothing crazy. If you're getting a lot of noise, definitely go get it checked out. But if you are a veteran of the sway bar, you know you'll get a little bit of noise when you're going over bigger bumps, especially coming into a driveway or leaving a driveway or anything like that. So everything on these bolts on the end of the end links down under the truck look good to go, no problems, nice and tight. Little bit of the movement, like I said, to go along with the axle. Next, we are going to be checking these guys over here that's actually on the axle to make sure they're still in there good. Just make sure when you do your install, you watch the brake lines, just follow the instructions precisely, because you don't want to hit anything that matters under here. By the way, if you've never seen a sway bar, I try to pull it back as much as I can. That right there is what it looks like. When people install it sometimes also, they put it so the actual sway bar is up more against the differential. And you could do that by turning these sideways, but I did what the instructions said and kind of just put it on the way it was supposed to be. But if you're one of those guys that puts the sway bar up more and turns these sideways, please let me know. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. All right, so we're just going to ensure that these are still on there nice and good. Oh yeah, they're on there good for sure. Like always, I'm going to be real with you guys. I just slammed my head into the spare tire. A lot of good tread on that. Good stuff. It isn't even like a donut. It's the actual... It looks like the AT... Yeah, the ATX. This is actually the tire that comes on the TRD Pro. And the TRD Off-Road is the spare tire on the Platinum. So that's pretty cool, huh? Alrighty, so we checked all of the bolt areas. All the connections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... 6, 7, and also the ones up there. Everything is tight, no problems across the bar. I also checked for shifting or if it's rubbing on anything like the brake lines, pretty much anything at all. So everything looks good to go. Pretty interesting view. While we're under here, this has nothing to do with anything, but there is the rear TRD Pro Bilstein piggyback shock. Up close and personal. See if I get a better shot there. Not bad looking at all. Nice and aggressive. There's another thing people always mess with me about. Do you guys like the white wall tires out or inward? Of course I did them inward because I wanted the outside of the truck to be all black. But are you the type to put the white lettering on the outside? Let me know. And one more thing before we end. So one thing I'm definitely going to be replacing very soon, probably just after the new year, is the drop-in bed liner. So I've had a lot of drop-in bed liners, no big deal, but for some reason this one just not fit right at all, and it moves around. When you hit bumps and stuff, you could hear it all the time. I mean, I understand that you want to put a little gap here so water can actually run out from under it and doesn't get trapped in rust, but even the fitment here is just really off. The whole thing moves. It doesn't sit well on the truck. I don't want to start getting marks like that on the truck. So we're going to take this whole thing out. We're going to do a spray in, spray on, whatever you want to call it, but this has to go. I'm starting to hear this way too much. I feel like it's getting looser, so I'm thinking just after the new year I will talk to my people and get something set up, but this thing has to go.
All right, I hop back in the truck so you guys can hear me no problem. So two funny things that happened being under the truck. Number one, I slammed my head into the rear tire, which I kind of expect to do things like that nowadays. And number two, when I was closing my Stanley box, I closed the wrong side first, and we had pretty much everything everywhere. Every bit, every single thing fell out on one side. And of course, that was the side with like the hundreds of different bits and stuff like that. So yeah, I had to clean all that up. So we're having a good one here, people. We're having a good one. That's what overnight shifts do. They hurt, and there's no sleep, and then you make stupid mistakes like that. But anyway, on with it. So that's what I do with my parts after I install them. You got to remember, a vehicle has a lot of shaking, a lot of rattling. You don't want stuff to come loose, especially at the inopportune time of being on the road. You want to be safe, no issues, no problem. So you can never over-check stuff. Remember that. Especially things like what we just looked at with the TRD sway bar. You know, that's important, and that's going to move a lot because it's outside the vehicle as well. I also do a lot of checking on the cold air intake that I don't have anymore, but when I had the TRD cold air intake, I'm always checking the connections and making sure everything's good so there's no air leaks or nothing where dirt could get in where it shouldn't, you know, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, always double check your work and always constantly check. No matter what the manual says, I always like to overcheck. You can never be too safe, right? So we talked about all the pros of the TRD rear sway bar, but I also want to talk about a couple cons because there's cons with everything. Con number one, and the biggest con of all, is the way that it sits on the axle and the differential if you off-road. Now, what I'm going to do is, right when I'm done with this, sitting in the car telling you the goodbyes, we're going to go outside. So don't cancel out of the video until the very end. We're going to go outside, and I'm going to kind of show you how it sits, just so, you know, instead of just talking about it, I could show you. It sits a little lower, and there's a little space between the differential and the actual sway bar, okay? I'm afraid that a rock would get jammed up in there. I'm afraid of just, this is the scary part. Say you're doing some kind of like basic rock climbing. What if you're climbing over a rock and a rock gets caught in it? It's going to pull that thing off. You're going to have all sorts of issues. So I do not recommend the TRD rear sway bar if you're doing some serious off-roading. I mean, if you're going down like dirt trails like I've done, fire roads, things like that where there's not a lot of rocks and there's not a lot of obstructions that you're going over, just basic dirt roads, you're fine. You're good to go. You should be all right. But it's when you're doing some crazy mudding or crazy off-roading, I wouldn't suggest it. Another reason I wouldn't suggest it for off-roading is articulation. The TRD rear sway bar totally cuts down on the articulation of the rear axle. So if you're going, again, off-road, somewhere crazy where there's a lot of rocks and you need your articulation, you don't want to limit that. Last but not least, we should say, I hear a lot of people say that you can't get the TRD rear sway bar if you have the TRD Pro suspension, meaning the shocks. Well, we have it on there with the TRD Pro suspension, and I had it on with my TRD Pro. I think the reason they say that more is because of what we just talked about with limiting the articulation. If you're going to take the TRD Pro to where it is supposed to be, off-road, desert running and all that, you want as much travel and articulation as you can get. So, again, overall, end of the day, if you're an off-roader, I probably wouldn't suggest the rear sway bar, but it's up to you. And like I said, Sparks Parts has it for, I think it's around $215, $220. And again, promo code TundraDude34 saves you 5% today and every day on the whole website. The whole website. Go crazy. Go shopping. And it's not just a one-time deal. You can use it as many times as you want. You can use it every day of the week. But yeah, that's all I got today. And again, we're going to be taking care of that Bedliner sooner than later. Feel free to suggest what Bedliner company I should go with. I'm thinking Line X. That's what everybody raves about. But now, before we close out the video, we're going to go outside and I'm going to show you what I mean with the rear sway bar and the differential and the axle, how it sits on each other. But as always, have yourself a fantastic Saturday evening. Twitter and Instagram at TundraDude34. You guys have a good one.
See, even from here, you can tell. You see how much it sticks out from the actual differential and the axle there? You want to get a rock caught up in there, that would be a bad thing. That would be a bad time for a lot of different parts. So that is why I don't suggest it off-road.